Hi, I'm Kirk. I'm an interpreter with California State Parks. I'm at First San Simeon State Beach on San Simeon Bay. There used to be a whaling station here in the 1860s. We're going to talk today about whales and a little bit about whaling. The whaling station was over on the point here, and it was only here for about 20 years. They hunted mainly gray whales and some humpback whales. We're going to go ahead and start heading down this way, and I'm going to talk to you a little more about whales, including a whale ancestor that has a really strange name called Pachycetus. And I'll explain all that in just a moment, but we're walking. Isn't this a beautiful day? Look at the wonderful ocean and all the nice people enjoying it. Remember, if you come out to your state parks on a pretty day like this, you want to be sure and keep a safe distance of 6 feet. And if you touch anything that's unfamiliar, please be sure and wash your hands as soon as you can. We all need to help flatten the curve, and we thank you for helping do that. All right, we're going to go right over here, and I'm going to show you a picture that I made that has 4 of the whales that we're going to talk about today, and an ancestor of whales who doesn't look anything at all like a whale. So these are 4 of the whales we're going to talk about today. The big one at the very top is the blue whale. It's the biggest animal that's ever lived on the earth, bigger than even the biggest dinosaur, bigger than a brontosaurus, bigger than T-Rex. It's way bigger than all of those dinosaurs. The other whale we're going to talk about is the humpback whale, the gray whale, the orca or killer whale, then that funny little creature down at the bottom that looks kind of like the hyena with the long skinny tail. That's Pachycetus. That's the ancestor of the whales. And Pachycetus was found in Pakistan, and it was a fossil that is 55 million years old, and they've been able to do tests on it to determine that Pachycetus was an ancestor of whales. So look at Pachycetus, kind of looks a bit like a dog or something like that. So how do you think Pachycetus got to be the ancestor of a whale? Where do you think Pachycetus lived? So Pachycetus lived along the shore of a sea called the Tethys Sea 55 million years ago. And Pachycetus probably kind of lurked around the side of the shoreline where it was kind of a little bit swampy. And then when Pachycetus saw a fish, would run in the water and grab the fish in his jaws and then run back out. So over time, Pachycetus became more adapted to the living in the ocean. So whales are mammals just like us. They're air-breathing mammals. They're warm-blooded, but they are completely adapted to life in the ocean. So over time, something like Pachycetus to something like this. This is a model of a humpback whale. So just think about all the changes that had to happen from that kind of dog-like looking ancestor to this whale. So you can see you get the streamlined body, and then the really important thing is, remember, these are air-breathing mammals, so they have to come up to the surface of the water to breathe. So the nose is going to move from the front of the animal's face, like it was on Pachycetus, all the way to the top of its head, and you can kind of see there's the blowhole or nostrils where the whale breathes on the top of its head right there. So it makes it real easy for the whale just to come up, just brush the surface of the water and get the air and then dive down in the water again. So they have really efficient lungs. Whales' lungs will take in 70 to 90% of the air once they come up to take a breath. Our lungs only take in like about 30%, so they're way more efficient. And I could explain to you a lot of the changes that happen to make Pachycetus there into a whale like the humpback whale here. But instead, what we're going to do, and you can do this with me, I'm going to dress up like a whale, and then I'm going to explain what parts of the whale I'm putting on, and you can do this too. So the first part that we're going to need, I'm going to tell you the different things that you'll need. You're going to need something to be the blubber. So I'm going to use a wetsuit, but you could use something like a old coat or a sweater or maybe even some pajamas. Then you're going to need something to kind of be your eyes. I couldn't find my swim goggles this morning, so I'm just going to have to use some sunglasses. You can use sunglasses too if you want to. And then I'm going to have something to make a fin or flipper. I have a piece of cardboard cut out for that. You can do find something to make that with too. And then we need the nose, and the nose is going to have to be one that you can move to the top of your head. All right, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to start dressing up and making myself into a whale. Right, so here's my eyes. Whales can actually see pretty good out of the water as well as in the water. Then here's the all-important nose. Remember, whales are air-breathing mammals, so the nose had to move from the front of their face up to the top of their head. So there you go. There's a nose on the top of my head. And then I need a flipper so that I can swim. You can tape yours in the back. I'm just going to hold mine. All right, so you need to have another flipper. These are called pectoral fins. The whales use them to steer with. And then they have a big fin on the bottom called a fluke, or their tail, that they use for the power to move through the water. So there you go. That's how you make yourself into a whale. So if you have yourself all dressed up, or you're working on it, we're going to move on, but you can have your parents or a friend take a picture of it and then send it to us at San Simeon State Park and have it posted on our Facebook page. It would be really cool. We'd love to see what you look like dressed up like a whale. All right, so I'm going to de-whale myself. So we're going to talk about 4 different kinds of whales. The blue whale is the largest animal that's ever lived on the earth. It can be 100 feet long. So you can do this maybe later for something fun to do, is try to figure out how many of you it would take to equal 1 blue whale. I figured it out for myself. So the way I figured it out was I'm 6 feet tall. If I multiply that by 10, I get 60 feet. So that's almost halfway for the whale. But then I still have 40 feet left over. So then you have to multiply something that'll get you the other 40 feet. So the closest I could do that, because remember I'm 6 feet tall, is 6 times 6. That's 36. So about 16 of me to equal the length of 1 blue whale. That's pretty amazing. And this giant animal eats some of the tiniest animals in the sea called krill. And I'm going to show you in this pop-up book right here by the whale's eye. Those are krill. They're little shrimp-like animals that the whale eats. And the whale eats them by taking a big gulp of water, like the picture of the whale you see right here. It comes up, takes a big gulp of water, and it has plates called baleen inside its mouth that are kind of like raggedy toothbrushes. So this is baleen from a gray whale. You can tell what the different kind of whale by their baleen, because each whale has slightly different colored or different length baleen. And it hangs like this down inside the whale's mouth. So the fringy part is on the inside, and there are whole rows of this in the upper part of the whale's mouth. Takes a big gulp of water, uses a massive tongue to push all the water out, and then all the krill or fish or whatever it's eating gets stuck in the fringe and the inside of its mouth. So the whales, great whales like blue whales and humpback whales and gray whales are the biggest filter feeders in the ocean. Pretty amazing that is something as big as a blue whale lives on something as tiny as krill. All right, another whale that we're going to talk about is the humpback whale. You may have heard of them. They have really long pectoral fins that kind of have white edges, and they have a lot of bumps called tubercules on the front of their face. That's one of the ways that you can tell them. And one of the things that humpback whales are known for is singing. The males will do these songs to attract mates, and sound carries like 7 times better in the water than in air, and so it's a really good way for whales to communicate with each other. The humpback whale is also known for something called breaching, which is where it like comes up really straight out of the water, almost on the to the end of its tail or fluke, and then it falls back into the water. And this Papa book has an illustration right there. There's a humpback whale breaching up out of the water. All right, somebody raise their hand with a question. If you can write your question in the chat section, then that way we can see it and answer it for you. Thanks a lot, we really appreciate that. All right, so that's the humpback whale. And now we're gonna talk about a different kind of whale that isn't a baleen whale. It's the orca, or sometimes called the killer whale. It is actually the biggest member of the dolphin family, and it has a whole, 2 rows of cone-shaped teeth inside its mouth that it uses to catch fish like salmon and herring and mackerel, and it also will catch and eat other marine mammals like seals and sea lions. Sometimes people think this makes the animal a kind of not a good animal, but remember, the killer whale is helping with the balance of nature. It's helping keep its prey animals in balance with their environment. And it can't go down to the supermarket and buy seal steaks or anything like that. If you eat meat or have hamburger stuff like that, that starts out as a cow too. So it's really we don't really need to judge animals based on how they make their living. It's just kind of how things are. The orca is a very social animal. They live in big groups called pods, and the pods are headed by the oldest experienced female whale. And she's the one who's in charge, and she knows all the good places to go hunting. She knows all the places where it's safe to be if there's a storm on the ocean. And she also kind of knows the culture of the pod, and she teaches it to all the other whales in the pod. Each orca pod has its own dialect, meaning the clicks, squeaks, and whistles that they use to communicate are unique to that particular pod. So it's kind of like their own special language. And a pod of whales will stay together throughout the orca's lifetime. So that's one of the reasons that maybe some orcas don't do very well in captivity, because it's very different than the way that they live in the wild. The last whale that we're going to talk about today is kind of my personal favorite. It's the gray whale, probably because I grew up here in California along the ocean, and we see gray whales a lot. They migrate up and down the coast twice a year. They go down in the winter time to the lagoons in Baja, California, and Mexico to have their babies. And then in the spring, they come up the coast and they go up to the Gulf of Alaska to feed on really rich food in the cold waters off the Gulf of Alaska. So gray whales have all kinds of barnacles all over their bodies. And this is a gray whale barnacle. You can see how big it is. You see it kind of fills up my hand there. And this is just like a barnacle you might see on the rocks, except it's way bigger. So there's the bottom of it where it attaches to the back of the whale. So it attaches itself right to the back of the whale. And then the other part of the animal is out in the middle here. It kind of puts its feet out, actually. So it kind of stands on its head, puts its feet out, which have long feathery kind of things attached to them. And it strains the food it wants, which are microscopic kinds of plankton, out of the water. So it too is a filter feeder, just like the blue whale or the other baleen whales. The barnacles that are found on a gray whale are only found on gray whales. Other whales that have barnacles on them have their own special barnacles too that are just for that species of whale. So if the whale dies, the barnacles can't survive and go to some other whale unless it's the same species. So that's something that's kind of neat. And that's one of the reasons that when you look at a gray whale, you see all those white patches. That's all the barnacles all over it, because gray whales move kind of slowly through the water. And we think that the barnacles get on the baby gray whales from their parents. The mothers will help like the baby gray whale come up to the surface to breathe for the first time after it's born. And then there's a lot of bodily contact between whales. And so we think that that's how the barnacles get spread from the parent whale to the young or juvenile whale. All right, so we're gonna head to the end here of the pier, just in case there might be a whale going by. And I'm gonna tell you a story about something that happened to me on a pier just like this one, only it's about 18 miles south of here at a town called Cayucas. There's a pier there, and I used to live in the town. And one morning, after riding my bike, I would walk out on the pier in the morning, and I walked out one morning, went to the very end of the pier, just like this one, and I was just kind of looking out at the view, enjoying the view. Then the water started to kind of boil and bubble, and then a juvenile gray whale popped up right out of the water, and it was looking right at me. It was turned so its eye was looking at me, and I was looking at the whale. And it's just one of the most amazing experiences I ever had. I could tell that I was looking at another intelligent being that was contemplating me while I was contemplating it. It is just an awesome experience. And those are the kinds of experiences that you can have at your California state parks. I can't promise you that if you come to our park here today that you'll always see a whale like that, but you never know. You just have to be open and be there, and sometimes nature will give you these special experiences. So let's go ahead and make our way all the way to the end here and see if we see anything. If you have any questions about any of the whales or anything, go ahead and put them in the chat, and then that way we can see them and we can try to answer them for you later. When we get to the end, I'm gonna have one more activity for you to do. You can do this at home, and then you can send it to us, and we will be able to see it just post it to the San Simeon State Park Facebook page. So we will have a whale for you to color that will look something like that. So this is an orca, and we'll post something like this on the San Simeon State Park Facebook page, and you can color it in. It's really super easy because it's just black and white. All right, let's see what we have here. Lots of birds, a boat, see some kelp out there, some more kelp over here, but I do not see any whales. We'll wait a minute here. Best time of year to whale watch depends on the species of whale. So for the gray whales along the coast here, the best time would be like December, January, February, when they're going down to Mexico, or in the spring, the March, April, and May when they're going back up north to Alaska. And then the orcas are here in the summertime, so like June, July, August. And the blue whales are here in the fall, like September, October, November. So those are some of the best times to come in to look for whales. And you can go on something really cool called a whale watching trip, where a boat will take you out of, a lot of them go out of Morro Bay, which is south of here, and then they take you around and look for whales. Good question. All right, well, that's kind of the end of today's program about whales. I hope you learned a little bit about them, and I hope you'll join me in wanting to protect them. They're awesome animals. I hope that we will have them for your lifetime and your children's lifetime. help us conserve whales. Remember that everything we do has an impact on the environment. So be sure and recycle and do everything you can to do your part to help take care of our wonderful planet that we live on. Thank you so much for joining me today. Enjoy our California state parks and have a great day.